coming in today, I'd like to go over ASDAN for you. It's the new system that we're bringing into Ed support schools, special needs schools at the moment. It's been around. I've given you a handout. Does everyone have a handout? Oh, you don't have one? There you go. Okay, if you have a look at the handout, ASDAN was devised in the UK. It was put together by a group of teachers who realised there wasn't a desperate need for a curriculum in special needs. There wasn't enough happening for students. However, ASDAN can also be used in engagement programs in a mainstream setting for students that are disengaged to bring them back. It's still managed by qualified teachers in the UK, and there's around 7,000 registered centres worldwide. It's being used in ITP programs, independent training programs, for students that have left school and are out and have a carer, and the carer, rather than just take them through life skills, they reach ASDAN credits and receive rewards for their efforts. Okay. ASDAN gives us achievable outcomes for students with learning difficulties. It's used meaning useful things in their lives that they do. It's not just sitting there in an academic world. It's adhering to skills that are going to help them in everyday life. It's flexible. It allows them to use the numerous learning strategies, and outcomes can be extended for those that are higher functioning. So that's where ASDAN is very flexible for our students. Assessments are achievable and they're set at students' working ability. So if you've got a really low functioning student in your class, and you can make the worksheet reachable, and you mark and assess your students at how they achieved the outcomes, whether they had a lot of help from you or a little bit of help. Okay, in our school, Learning Ed Support Centre, we use 4 ASDAN work modules or workbooks. The one that I'm focusing on today is Transition Challenge, and that's aimed at 14 to 15-year-olds. 2, Towards Independent and Work Right, they are the 2 in our centre that are linked to waste points. They're endorsed, and the points students can achieve, they can claim waste points. Therefore, people in a mainstream setting can also utilise those. Okay? There are 2 more, a literacy and a numeracy book that we can work through from. However, our students are not using those at the moment. Okay, these are the look of the book, so they're very inviting to the students. They're not. And our Transition Challenge. In a Transition Challenge workbook, we have 5 modules. There's knowing how, feeling good, making choices, moving forward, and taking the lead. Each module has 14 lessons. Okay, 14 lessons covering English, maths, science, design technology, foreign languages, ICT, religious education, citizenship, community, expressive arts, family, home, recreation, sport and leisure, and work relation. You only have to choose 8 of those 14 to complete one set module. Each module has to be completed at different times. Students may take up to 2 years to achieve the total outcome of the whole book. Okay, they don't like it to go over 2 years. Okay, so for each of the 14, you need to select 8. So perhaps for me, languages is not a choice. Like, that's not a choice that I would choose for my students. Therefore, I wouldn't use that one. So it's just up to what you think the students would like to cover. Many of our students cover some of them in a mainstream setting. For instance, the ICT is covered through Business Ed. So they'll cover that, reach that outcome there. For each 8 of your that you choose, you need 3 pieces of evidence. So for instance, I'll pass these books around to you so you can just have a look. In the first module of Knowing How, the first one is Knowing How. There are the 14, like I said. For each of those, you can choose 8. For each of those 8, you need 3 pieces of evidence. I've got a couple of files here which show how we've already started to collate the students in this class's work. Once you've got the 3 pieces of evidence, you actually need self-reflection page by the students. You can do it or your students can do it. They self-reflect. So you have 3 pieces of evidence plus a self-reflection, and that goes in for internal moderation within your school. So there's 2, 3 files here you might like to have a look. I'll place them around. Okay, ASDAN's linked to Bloom's taxonomy and Gardner's multiple intelligences. It allows for all the different learning types in students, whether they're visual, linguistic, hands-on. The flexibility's there for your students, and in special needs, most of our students do learn from their mainstream subjects are a bit off task for them. They do learn more in hands-on. For each of the lessons, as I said, 3 examples of work, 1 being a student self-reflection. So definitely a lot of reflective work in the ASDAN modules. Okay, I have got the marking criteria, the assessment criteria for students. We mark them with no help if they can do it on their own. Spoken or signed help, you're helped by someone either speaking or giving them signals pointing to something. Gestural help, using hand signals. Physical help if we have to get a student, or we physically write it if they're pointing, they may not have movement. Sensory help if they're hearing, touching, and we record their experiences. If for the 3 pieces of work each student may have 1 of no help, and we've marked the other 2 as spoken help, then their overall grade will be a spoken help mark. Okay, so whatever, if you've given them no help, spoken help and physical help, then you'll go with your, maybe your little one, your spoken help, because they're around in the middle. It depends on the outcome. Students can be pushed for their ability. In my class I have 3 different levels of ability. So I can do 3 different lesson plans, and each student can reach a different assessment mark at their own level. Okay? Because some of the lessons may be too easy for the stronger people. For instance, one of our activities, if you'll have a look in the file, Knowing How, one of the activities was on the book The Gruffalo, which is here. So this covers numerous learning types. Okay, visually they're reading, they're using their cognitive thinking, their scaffolding, because each lesson builds on the lesson before. So they're reading from the story, they'll have that knowledge, and then they'll build on. I've got 3 handouts here of the lesson, the first lesson and the second lesson. The first lesson was basically asking things about the Gruffalo, the main character, and the students finished that lesson by drawing a picture. So I'll just pass those around. If you'd like to have a look at those. And the second lesson builds off that first one. It might cover a few of the same questions, but it builds on it. And that will be where the students will retell that story to a friend or their teacher. So same type of questions, but the task is a little bit harder. They retell it rather than just drawing it. So they're pulling information that they already have heard a couple of times. I'll pass that one over. And the last one I've got here is an extension of the second one. So this is also the second lesson, however it's an extension. Okay, it finishes off where they need to recreate a storyboard. And if you have a look at one of the files there, you'll see one of the students has done a storyboard of the Gruffalo. So in each square they have to recreate, and at the bottom they have to write again in their own words. Okay? So that's the third one, if you'd like to have a look. So I'll just give you a moment just to have a quick flick through those and have a look at the story of the Gruffalo and see how easy it is for students of all levels to reach the outcomes. And each of the lessons I have put the marking criteria on, so everybody's aware of what the students are aiming for. Does anyone have any questions on the lesson? Okay. No questions on the lesson? if we keep going, if you'll notice that they are all doable, that the students are able to reach their outcomes. We can adapt the lessons, we can make them harder, and we just help them at their own level. Okay, so each student, it's doable for them. Okay, when we've completed it, there are moderation. There's internal moderation and external moderation. Internal moderation is where we get together as a school and we hand in the students' portfolios. So the work goes in a portfolio that I've laid out for you to have a look at. I'll just grab this one so I can explain it to you. And like I said, there is a self-reflection, and there's also, we've got them in sections. We have the 3 pieces of work and a self-reflection. These go up for moderation. When they're moderated internally, they're checked off to make sure that everything's above board. There is the evidence. The evidence can be written work, it can be a checklist, it can be photos, it can be a movie, it can be any type of evidence that says the child has reached the outcome. The self-reflection bit is where the student tells us how they reached the outcome. We can write that, or the student can write that, depending on the ability of the student. And photos are fine to put in that. So the portfolio gets handed in for internal moderation, and the only time it can be handed in is when they do it, I think it's twice a year, they moderate. You have to have finished all 8 sections of one module. Okay. If the students, however, do not reach the whole book by the end of the year, then it can be, like I said, go on to the following year. It can take 2 years to reach. Once it's been internally moderated, if it's found to be up and aboard, it goes into external moderation. And schools within your region get together and they externally moderate all the students' work. Once that's gone through, and if the child passes, then they receive a certificate to say they've achieved those outcomes. All of the certificates, all of the paperwork, all of the workbooks still come from the US. It's not Australian made at the moment. It's still coming from the US. Okay, but it has numerous activities. You draw up your lessons yourself. So if you were to look at knowing how they retell a story. In some of my classes, to reach that outcome, we retold Anzac Day, we retold the election, we held an election. It doesn't have to be a storybook per se, like, they're reading the Gruffalo. It can be a story about anything. The election to the students is a story. It's about how they, they went through the motions of voting and, the 2 main parties, and it was written in a story. The students answer, they ran their own ballot, we had ballot papers, we had, they were advertising their own campaigns. So it's more than just a story, or you can just, with the Gruffalo, read them a story and get them to reach those outcomes. It just depends on the students. Okay, we're still trying to adapt it to the Australian curriculum. However, one of the senior teachers in our school has adapted ASDAN within our school to our own students and put our outcomes, what we're delivering, like for knowing how, listen to a story, current affairs, fables, and then the set skills, which are the outcomes that the students will reach and they'll get put into their books. Okay, and it links in with the Australian curriculum, the language strands, literature strands, and goes through to mathematics with measuring. Our mathematics are put through by cooking. We can cook with the students. We can do cooking through crafts. We can do it mathematics through measuring pancakes with a half a cup and a quarter of a cup and a teaspoon. So it's all there for every learner. And therefore we carry that over to fractions on our board. So for those students that are more mathematically minded, autistic students rather than you're just hands-on, we might talk about fractions and that will suit them and we can extend them in that situation. Okay, I've talked about internally and externally moderated. Portfolio of work. Belgravia School in the UK summed it up nicely. What is ASDAN? ASDAN is an internationally recognised awarding body offering programs and qualifications that grow skills for learning, skills for employment, skills for life. Okay, students with special needs need social skills, and most of our curriculum does fit in with the ASDAN, and most of our students are very multi-intelligent learning. I mean, they have a variety of learning needs and difficulties, and also some of them just need something to trigger it off. They get awarded by a certificate. Students are awarded using, they receive their certificates, and that will go in their portfolio for their work. And because, as I said earlier, ASDAN is in over 7,000 areas nowadays, it's highly world acclaimed, and the students can carry that through with them. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? No? I was wondering if if you could fill out one of these surveys and just give me feedback on whether you've learned anything from the presentation today. Thank you.
Hang on, I haven't stopped yet.
Oh,
Hang on, why is it not stopping?
there you go.
Yeah.